From NPR in Tamaulipas, Mexico, I'm Emma Sabin reporting live. Young, scrawny Dina Casanga Vasquez is the face of human trafficking victims worldwide, even though she originally comes from San Salvador, El Salvador. Mexican police recently found her notebook in the streets of Tamaulipas, a border city. As for now, all that is left is Dina's story is her writing. Child of Alejandra Casanga Vasquez, a Strong League street vendor, Dina and her 6 siblings lived off of barely $1 in San Salvador. Dina, being the oldest, took the responsibility of taking care of her siblings, sweeping their one-room shack, and preparing small meals. Ostracized by society because of their poverty and familial status, Dina was ashamed to leave the shack and face the world. In her journal, Dina says,
I was ashamed and lost. I did not know what happened to my father. Maybe he fell prey to gangs. Maybe he died. But he is gone now, and our family has little hope.
Every morning, Dina is awakened by helicopters carrying deported Salvadorian criminals. At 14 years old, Dina, unlike her grandfather Hector Casanga, was too young to remember simpler times. Hector, who was somewhat of a father figure to Dina, blames the corrupt Salvadorian government for the crime and fear in El Salvador.
I remember times before the Civil War and the 1980s devastated our country. We were peaceful and kind. When people were forced into the United States, they entered gangs and drug rings. And now the United States is pushing the criminals back into our land. Our entire government is fractured and cannot deal with murderers and thieves. I do not like what our country has become.
Even though Dina's grandfather blamed the Americans for the gangs in their country, Dina secretly wished to live the American dream. She longed to go to school and to live a secure life. In her deepest dreams, she had a father in a 2-story house. However, such a life seemed intangible and it faded into non-existence until...
One day, while I was sleeping, I looked closely at a folded newspaper on the floor. It looked like a paper that someone had thrown on the streets as they were walking past. I always wanted to learn how to read, so I picked up the newspaper. Right there, on the first page, with a sign from God, was an advertisement for a job in America. It was bright and shiny, and it had a picture of a girl, just like me. But I couldn't read the name to contact, so I immediately went to Elmer.
Elmer Moran was a man living near Dina. They hadn't exchanged more than a passing glance, even though they lived within the same 1-mile radius. Dina would normally stay away from Elmer because she assumed that, like most nearby boys, he was involved in the gangs and violence that she wanted to escape. However, Dina hoped that Elmer could read, so she reached out to him as soon as she saw the advertisement. Elmer was in a similar situation as Dina, although she didn't know it. Even though he was literate, he was still young and impoverished. Elmer Moran was the suspected father of 2 of her siblings. He wanted to go to America as badly as she.
I guess I just really wanted to leave. Dina had found her hook. So, one night, I went to Dina's mother and talked about her plan to leave. To my shock, she didn't know Dina's plan. We talked for much of the night, and we decided that Dina and I would leave together. I was supposed to protect her. We later purchased a cheap birth certificate confirming that I was Dina's father.
So Dina and Elmer left quietly together. The man from the advertisement, Miguel Santos, had gotten back to the duo, saying that if they traveled across the border with Benjamin, Dina would have a job in the U.S. Benjamin agreed to smuggle the 2 across the border. Since Dina was a young girl, she could not handle the long journeys to the U.S. through the expansive Mexican deserts. Instead, Benjamin would lead the duo to the most direct and dangerous port of entry for a reduced price. He promised, however, that since the 2 were supposedly related, the border patrol would let them pass through. Elmer recalls the beginning of the journey as going smoothly. The 2 traveled in a covered caravan in which they talked comfortably with Benjamin. During the beginning of the journey, Elmer passed the time by teaching Dina how to write. Elmer recalls that Dina decided to write a story depicting their adventure together, which eventually morphed into the notebook that authorities found. The days in the caravan passed into months, and Benjamin's sunny disposition began to change. Dina writes,
A relationship of love and admiration soon turned into fear. Benjamin began as a man I could trust and talk to. but as the journey continued, he seemed frustrated with us. I first blamed it on the long and treacherous journey, but that didn't make sense to me. It was his job to help us. Why did he seem surprised?
Elmer similarly recalls Benjamin's reign of fear.
He was vengeful. Everything became a form of payment. I do this, so you do that. He was both physically and verbally abusive to both of us. Soon, our only goal was to make it to the border. After that, everything was in God's hands, and we would leave Benjamin behind.
But once they reached the border city of Tamaulipas, Mexico, they did not leave Benjamin behind. Having grown close during the journey, the two wanted to enter America together. As soon as they entered Tamaulipas, Benjamin said they would have to start their jobs in Mexico before returning to America.
And that's when I lost contact with Dina. I was sent to work at a farm by some of Benjamin's friends. All of the workers were connected to Benjamin. They would work shorter hours and they were paid more. I worked all day and was only fed on the verge of collapse. I never saved up enough money to cross the border. I felt trapped and had no one to turn to. Every time I tried to run away, I would be caught by someone and beaten. I gave up on America very quickly.
Unbeknownst to Elmer, Dina was facing a similar predicament. She wrote every night about her desperation and helplessness.
First arrived at Tamaulipas, Benjamin gave me a job so I could gain money before crossing the border. Elmer had explained to me that my job was modeling. I soon realized that Elmer must have read the advertisement wrong. Benjamin would bring me to different motels and houses, and force me to have sex with much older and stronger men. It is called prostitution, and Benjamin said that it was illegal. I was not to tell anyone about it. I never see much money from it, and the few pesos I could scrape together went firstly to my food and clothing. No matter how long I work for Benjamin, it never seems to be enough payment.
Dina writes later in her notebook,
I do not know how many days have passed. I will never be able to leave this town, and I cannot escape Benjamin. I do not know what is going on, and I cannot tell anyone about it. Tamaulipas looks just like San Salvador. Gangs patrol the streets selling drugs. I hear people screaming at night, and I have heard of many murders. I do not know where Elmer is. Every day I fear that I may be murdered next.
And soon after this entry came Dina's final journal entry, in which she said,
America must be so close to me, but it feels even farther away than it did when I was in El Salvador. No one hears my cries for help. I am letting go.
Mexican police found Dina lying dead in a motel room next to her journal. While the Mexican government has released statements about how it will strive to help the victims of human trafficking, few current effective laws exist that protect the victims. Elmer contacted the Mexican police and the American police as soon as he heard the story. He had escaped the farm with the help of some of the men in Tamaulipas, and he fled to the United States with one of their infants. The two were caught by the police at the United States border. Elmer claimed to be the infant's father in order to cross. Under the Flores statement, Elmer and the child could not be held in detainment for more than 3 days, so they were transferred to an overcrowded shelter in Texas. From there, he has been speaking to us about Dina and their tragic journey to America.
My journey with Dina was one of the darkest times in my life. I feel guilty for her fate. I'm fortunate to have gotten away. I pretended I was someone else in order to cross the border. But I hope that Dina's writing will help the police catch people like Benjamin.
Authorities have tried to catch Benjamin in his human trafficking ring, but they have been unsuccessful. Dina and Elmer represent the thousands of human trafficking victims every year from Central America to the United States.